What's up, everybody? My name is Ale, and welcome to my world of stocks. Now, as you guys know, AMD stock got absolutely obliterated. They got absolutely destroyed today after releasing earnings, and they dropped by over 20% today, and they are now down around 50% from their recent highs of around $34 per share, losing around half of their value and now trading for only around $17 per share. But before you hit the dislike button just because I've been bullish on AMD in the long term, please consider the fact that I've made many videos on AMD, and I've mentioned in all of them that, in at least all the recent ones, that I was cashing in profits on AMD. I cashed in huge profits on AMD at a time where it wasn't a very popular thing to say. I got a lot of criticism for that because at the time, everybody was very bullish on AMD. You know, all these analysts were raising price targets and the stock just kept getting flooded and climbing. And I came out and I said that I was cashing in some huge profits. I still held a small portion of that AMD stock, which we'll talk about. But for the most part, I was cashing in huge profits on AMD. And I don't say that to be cocky or to rub it in or to say, you know, I told you so or anything like that, because I never told anybody to sell AMD. I never told anybody to buy AMD. I always just kind of give my opinion. And I know that a lot of my subscribers are heavily invested in AMD, despite the fact that, you know, in my opinion, I think everyone should be more diversified. I know that some of my subscribers are just heavily invested in AMD, and I completely feel for them. I completely feel for all of you. I hope that you're all doing okay. I hope you're calm and that you're safe. You're not doing anything crazy or bad just because of money. It's just money. Don't let it, control your life. Stay calm above all else and stay safe. But having said that, I'm not going to hide from the fact that I still held some of my AMD stock. I still held a small portion, pretty insignificant when you consider my overall portfolio, but for a long time, AMD was one of my 3 largest stocks. It was actually my 2nd largest stock, and if it wasn't for me buying so much Nintendo at the time, AMD would easily have been, my number 1 stock, because I was buying so heavily into AMD when it was under $10 a share. So I'm technically actually still up despite all of this crashing. Just because I did actually buy above my cost basis that I'm at right now, but because I bought so heavily under $10, my cost basis still kind of stayed relatively low. I don't like to give out specifics because then I feel like everybody tries to copy exactly what I'm doing, and I hate that because I want everybody to do their own research, make their own decisions, and people can be super critical on YouTube. So I don't like all of my personal information to kind of be out there. But the point is that I did hold some of that AMD stock, and the truth is that I am still bullish on AMD. I've been very bullish on them in the long term. Now, I should emphasize long term because I think there's kind of this mindset going around that long term just means like next month, and that's not the case. Long term means years upon years upon years. And some of the reasons why I've been bullish on AMD in the long term is because of their innovations, their innovative products that are still down the pipeline. They still haven't really come out yet. Now, another thing is that I just made a video not too long ago about an analyst that was very bearish on AMD stock, and he said that it would crash to $18, and apparently he was right. So I got to give credit where credit is due. Apparently he was right, and I didn't agree with him. I didn't think it would crash this low. Can any of you honestly say that you thought AMD would crash this low? Maybe some of you. I know for sure there are some really heavy bears on AMD, and it gets shorted a lot. So maybe some of you did think that it would crash this low, but it's pretty surprising how low it crashed. And it did catch me a little bit off guard because, like I said, I've always been pretty bullish on AMD. Now, when looking at why I cashed out when the stock was high, it's not the fact that the stock was high. I think there's a misunderstanding. Some people, I think, are saying that, I cashed out because it was high. It's not the fact that it was high. I always thought that the stock would climb high. The problem was that it climbed too fast. And so that was where I saw the problem, because everybody was just so incredibly bullish on the stock that I had to take a step back and evaluate the situation and say, it's getting flooded too much for these innovative products that haven't come out yet. We haven't really done as much as we can do. Like AMD hasn't reached its potential yet the stock is climbing as if it has reached its potential. So at that point, I just saw the rate of climbing too fast. I saw the stock climbing too fast, and I had to take a step back and lock in some profits in case anything like this happened. Now, I also kept a small portion because I was afraid that the stock would just keep climbing. I thought, okay, the stock might just keep climbing. It might ignore the fact that it's climbing so fast, might keep climbing. So I wanted to keep a small portion in case it climbed so I could take advantage of that. But if the stock crashed down, I wanted to be able to jump back into the stock at much lower prices. Now, you guys know that you should always do your own due diligence. You should always do your own research and make your own decisions. But if you want to know what my opinion is on everything, in this video, we will talk about the earnings. I will give my opinion on the earnings, and I will also give my opinion on the stock, where it's at right now, where I see it going long term, and if I have any plans of buying into the stock. So that's what we're going to cover. Let's get started by covering the earnings. Okay, so looking at GAAP earnings, AMD reported EPS of 9 cents, which was short of analyst estimates of 12 cents, according to FactSet. And they had revenue coming in at 1.65 billion, which was also short of estimates at 1.7 billion. Now, year over year, their EPS was up 3 cents and revenue was up 4%, but quarter over quarter, so looking at this third quarter versus the second quarter, their EPS was down 2 cents and their revenue was also down about 6%. On the bright side, their gross margin increased by 3 percentage points over last quarter and by 4 percentage points over last year. And guidance has it increasing an additional point next quarter. And speaking of guidance, analysts were looking for revenue of 1.6 billion in the fourth quarter, but AMD guided much lower than that at only 1.4 to 1.5 billion, which would still be up 8% year over year at the halfway mark of that range, but it still falls short of analyst expectations. So in other words, this was the 5th consecutive quarter that AMD saw year over year growth, but it wasn't enough for Wall Street. I think that they overhyped the stock, and we didn't see enough of an impact from the Intel shortages to really help AMD, and they weren't really able to meet those expectations. Now, there's other things that we'll talk about, but we kind of saw that happen with Caterpillar in the previous video. We talked about Caterpillar, where they had really solid numbers in their earnings, but it wasn't enough for Wall Street, and they didn't like guidance, and they didn't like the tariffs because of the whole US-China trade war, and the stock just got completely destroyed. Now, perhaps the biggest issue for this earnings report was crypto mining, and I know crypto mining, we haven't really talked about it on the channel because me being the idiot that I am, I kind of just stopped paying attention to it. But in my defense, I did think that the Intel shortages would have a bigger impact and kind of help offset that. But it turns out that crypto mining did in fact have a major impact on earnings. Now, the issue with crypto mining is that it kind of fluffed up AMD's numbers in the past, but it was really only temporary gains. So it didn't really help AMD in this quarter. And if this wasn't such a damn volatile market, and it wasn't so negative right now, kind of seeing the glass half empty instead of the glass half full, I think maybe earnings would have been a little different. I think we would have been a little more rational. I think we could have maybe taken a step back and said, okay, crypto mining is a temporary thing, but AMD is growing other parts of their business that will offset that eventually. But that's not really what happened. We took crypto mining very seriously in this quarter. Their revenue didn't hit, their EPS didn't hit, and the stock got hammered. And I've said this many times, when you're in a volatile market, in a negative market, stocks like AMD, these growth stocks, especially a chip stock like AMD, is just going to get absolutely hammered if they don't announce really strong earnings. Now, if you're saying, Ale, what the hell are you talking about? I'm gonna explain. Now, according to AMD, in the past, so we're talking last year, the blockchain sales, which are essentially crypto mining sales, used to make up a quote high single-digit percentage for AMD's total revenue. Now that's a very significant amount. I don't know exactly how much because it was never really specified, but if you're talking high single digits, if you're talking close to 10%, you're talking about maybe around $150 million in revenue, give or take some. And that's literally the difference between beating targets this quarter or missing targets, which is what happened. And it's also the difference between raising guidance or missing guidance. Now, you might be asking, well, they had that revenue last year. Do they have it this year? And the answer is no, they don't, at least from my understanding of the earnings call. Now, I could absolutely be wrong. I'm not some big shot analyst. I don't get paid thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this for a living. I'm just a single investor like you guys. But when I listened to the earnings call, I think it was pretty clear from what their CFO said, saying that blockchain sales were, quote, negligible. So negligible meaning insignificant. So they were virtually non-existent. And if you want proof of that, if you want proof that it's because of crypto mining, I mean, just look at the correlation with crypto prices, right? When you look at Bitcoin trading right now versus at the start of the year, it was trading like 300% higher at the start of the year. So it's completely slowed down, and it makes complete sense that they would not have any of this revenue coming from blockchain sales or crypto mining. Now, whether crypto mining will ever pick back up, I have no idea because I don't really track cryptocurrencies. but I know that it's something that AMD is not really focused on. In fact, Lisa Su spoke to this on the earnings call, and she said that data center GPU sales will be a meaningful contribution to fourth quarter sales, but it won't be a quick fix, adding that they are expecting that it might take a couple quarters to completely get back to a normal GPU channel. So this impact from negligible blockchain sales is still going to have an impact in the short term until it gets canceled out by other parts of their business that is growing. In fact, enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom sales came in above analyst expectations at 715 million versus 653 expected. And Lisa Su also said that client and server processor sales increased significantly, and when looking at Ryzen, that must have been really strong to help offset these horrible blockchain sales, because they actually reached their highest processor unit shipments since 2014, and Ryzen now makes up over 70% of their processor revenue. Now, this was probably aided a little from Intel's shortages, but AMD didn't really speak to this too much. During the earnings call, Lisa Su did mention that the company saw, quote, pockets of shortages in the processor market, and she also mentioned that they increased production to respond to that, but she only said that the company benefited from them, quote, a bit, and she didn't really clarify much beyond that, so it doesn't really sound like they benefited too much from it. So at the end of the day, I'm left with a few different thoughts. Now, one is that obviously crypto mining is becoming non-existent in terms of sales for them, and that's going to slow down their growth, at least in the short term, maybe for the next couple quarters, until they can get these new products out and they can gain more market share and their products gain more popularity so that they can offset the effects of the slowdown in blockchain sales. On top of that, as they continue to release these new products, you'll probably see ASPs going up, and you can see on this chart here that margins continue to improve and they will probably improve even further. But in the short term, my biggest concern is that AMD stock just climbed too high too fast, and now we're in a very volatile market that doesn't really support that kind of climb in share price. The type of market that we're in right now, just to give you an example, I'm going to talk about Microsoft in my next 3 stocks I'm investing in video, because Microsoft is my second largest stock. But Microsoft announced earnings today too, and they had amazing earnings. Like, I was looking through their report and it was amazing, everything that I was seeing. By the way, Xbox revenue was up through the roof, and AMD will probably benefit from upcoming gaming consoles like the next PlayStation, the next Xbox. They'll also continue to improve performance on PCs. The gaming market is going to continue growing, so those are areas where AMD will absolutely benefit from. But just speaking of Microsoft, they announced amazing earnings. Basically, every single segment that they had was up double-digit growth year over year by tens of percents, and the stock still went down. The stock went down to 105. At one point, it was trading at less than $100. I mean, at that point, I clicked buy right away. I tried to buy what I could, but that's just crazy. That's the market that we're in right now, where it's just so volatile that you can have pretty decent earnings and the stock will still go down. Now, I'm not saying that AMD had pretty decent earnings. Their earnings were kind of disappointing. Obviously, it was an effect of crypto mining slowing down. At least that's kind of my takeaway. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not an analyst. My takeaway is that crypto mining kind of hurt them this quarter, may also hurt them next quarter. And that's one of the reasons why they lowered guidance, and they kind of priced that into their guidance, because they are expecting this to kind of continue for a little while. But when talking about AMD stock recovering, because I received lots of comments and messages, hey, is this the time to buy AMD? Is AMD stock gonna recover? My opinion is that we kind of need to have a little more of a stable market if AMD is gonna start recovering. It's not just AMD that's dropping, guys. Look across the board. Stocks are getting hammered left and right. Some stocks are doing very well. Tesla had a freaking amazing day today, but other stocks are just getting hammered. And the chip stocks are getting hammered across the board as well. Intel, Nvidia, Micron. Have you guys seen the price of Micron? I don't remember the price, but I think it was in like the low 30s or something. I mean, Micron is getting destroyed. So these stocks aren't doing too well. Now, I've said in the past, I feel like we got kind of a perfect storm of rising interest rates, trade war with China, midterms. All of this stuff just kind of happened at once. In October, which is historically like the most volatile month, is like the scariest month for the market. So it was bound to happen that we were going to have a very negative market, and a stock like AMD not having really great earnings, missing targets, not having great guidance either, is going to get absolutely destroyed. Now, when looking at what it will take for AMD to recover, I think we have to wait for these new products to come out, and I think more importantly, we need a stable market, and I don't really see the market becoming more stable and rallying until after the midterms. Now, some people think that the market is just going to crash, that this is just leading to a crash, that we've already dropped a huge amount and we're just going to continue to drop down. And that could happen. A trade war with China could just linger on. We could just keep, nobody wants to figure this out. Nobody talks, and it just gets, tariffs get worse and worse and worse. Maybe the market doesn't like whatever happens in the midterms. Maybe interest rates continue to climb. All these different things, yeah, it could potentially keep bringing down the market. But my opinion is that that's not going to happen. My opinion is that we will have a strong rally. We will have a very strong rally after the midterms. Now, the reason that I think that is because I think midterms will come and go, and it will just be short-term noise. No matter what happens, right now it's projected that Democrats will win the House, Republicans win the Senate. That kind of sets up a gridlock where I think the market kind of likes that anyway. And even depending on kind of what happens, we could potentially get lower taxes. I'm not going to get political because last time I got some heat for that, and I'm not even a political person, so I don't know why I even got heat for that. But if we get lower taxes, I'd have to assume that the market probably likes that. But I don't know. I guess some people don't agree with that because I got some heat for making that comment. And then when looking at the trade war with China, that's a big concern as well. But even looking there, China's economy is slowing down and their stock market is basically in the toilet. So I have to figure that China is open to having trade talks with us. Now, the real question is Trump. But when looking at Trump, he's taken all the credit for the stock market rallying up and increasing. So he has to take credit when the stock market drops as well. And if he wants to get reelected in 2020, I think the stock market will be an important issue. So I think he does want the market to continue to go up. If that's the case, then I would assume that he would try to open trade talks up again with China. There's also a third catalyst where some analysts are saying, hey, what if the Fed kind of sees the fact that market is struggling this much and they start to slow down, the rising interest rates? So right now we have a perfect storm for negativity. We could potentially have a perfect storm for positivity, right? Midterms come and go. Maybe interest rates slow down. I don't know if they will or not, but maybe they do. Trump seems to be putting a lot of pressure on the Fed. So maybe that kind of works. I don't know if it will. And maybe he opens up trade talks again with China. All those things kind of go well, and maybe the stock market starts going up again. Tesla had really good earnings. Microsoft had really good earnings. I don't know why in the world it dropped, but I tried to pick up as many shares as I could. And then tomorrow is earnings from Amazon and Google. That could be very important. When we get earnings from Apple, that'll be very important. So potentially we have some strong earnings. Maybe we start to kind of climb back up. Boeing had really good earnings too, right? And I think they said that the whole trade war isn't even really affecting them. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's something that they said. So I think potentially after the midterms, we have a very strong rally in the stock market. So that's kind of what I'm preparing for. Now, in terms of whether or not I'm buying AMD stock right now, I just can't do it because the market is just too volatile and I don't know what to expect and I'm not in any hurry. Microsoft is trading at great prices right now. I was able to pick up more shares. Activision is trading at ridiculously low prices. Maybe not so much in terms of their PE ratio, but in terms of their future potential, I think that they're trading at great prices. And Disney is actually finally starting to come back down. They were actually going up when a lot of these stocks were getting hammered. Disney was actually going up for some reason. So Disney kind of started falling back down again. So now I'm kind of liking Disney's price as well. So there's other stocks that I'm really interested in, but I can practically guarantee you that if AMD continues to drop, I will be picking up more shares of AMD. Especially if it gets down to around $10. I would be shocked if it comes back down to $10. But if it does, oh man, I would load up on AMD. But anyway, because I have in the past. AMD traded at less than $10 in the past and I completely loaded up on AMD. If it does it again, nothing has changed. I will completely load up on AMD. Their future roadmap still looks exactly the same. We're going to have new gaming consoles coming out. They're going to be the first to market with 7nm technology. So they have very innovative products. They're going to steal market share from Intel in the server market. They said in the earnings call that they are on track to get mid-single digit by the end of the year and double digit by next year. So they are completely on track. Nothing has changed. And this whole crypto mining effect is going to come and go eventually. So long term, I think this is still a really good stock. Long term, that's the key word, long term. And don't come back next month saying you said long term. Long term is not a month. Long term is not 2 months. Long term is looking years ahead. Anyway, that's how I feel. But who cares what I think, guys? It really matters what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't get too biased or kind of deter anyone. I'm just giving my opinion. This is just how I feel about AMD. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, hopefully offset some of the dislikes that I'm sure this video will get. And I will catch you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful day. Stay safe in the stock market. Be cautious. Invest in stocks gradually. There's no rush. The market's not going anywhere. And I think the volatility will continue. So don't rush into anything, okay? Be very cautious. That's it. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.